Hi there, my friend. Welcome to the Leadership Table. We are so excited. I have a dear friend of ours. Danielle and I have Sonia Smith from the SBDC New York State is a dear friend of ours, a great leader who's making a great impact across all of New York State. And I'm just excited to have her with us today. So Sonia, thank you for joining us. And we're gonna have a great conversation on leadership and what you're seeing in your world.
No, and thank you so much, Chad, for having me. I know Lions Pride does a lot in terms of leadership, not only just for individuals like me, but for the communities, not just in New York State, across the globe. You guys are like killing it. But I'm happy to be a guest and share any nuggets with you all.
Well, we're trying our best. We're just doing our best on our end, right?
Yes.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And I want to, if you can spend just a minute or two, just give our listeners a background of the Sonia Smith that Danielle and I have gotten to know, a little bit of how you got to where you are as the state director, and then we'll jump into a conversation.
So yeah, I mean, I met you and Danielle, um, actually through one of the regional directors on Staten
Right.
Island, Dean Balaminsi, Balamin. Oh my God, I can't even say his name. Balsamini. I like, there you go. It takes like three times to finally get it out. But Dean was very fantastic on the work he did with not just with small businesses and entrepreneurs, but with nonprofit organizations.
Mhm.
And so when he made the introduction and talked about what you all do and how statewide this can really impact the SBC program, but also the community. So, my part in the SBDC program, but also just as a leader within New York State, kind of shaped a lot of like my upbringing has shaped that my community, my mentors, even my mentees, people that I
Yeah.
mentor, have helped develop me and create the person you or help shape the person you all know. Um, I have different people in different industries that surround me and give me input, give me feedback, support me. We discuss things and skill sets that we should develop or I should be working on developing.
Uh-huh.
But also just in general, in terms of small business and economic development, if you want to kind of be in the forefront and understand how you can help those entrepreneurs and small businesses develop their dream and make it a reality, you have to kind of continue to develop yourself to understand how
Uh-huh.
you can support them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I mean, my family, of course, I come from a military background. My mother works in the medical field. So I think like structure, organization, community, serving others has always been like ingrained in me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. My father is a Marine as well, so it's I I know what it is to be in a military family.
Yes, yes. And so I think it like passes down to us a little bit, some of those aspects that you pick up and personality traits. But I would say between my role at the SBDC and working with community leaders at all different levels, whether it's
Mhm.
federal, state, local, my team internally, but also partners. I think your family, your friends, people you really care about, that they say it takes a village. It really does take a
Yeah,
village.
it really does, right? Danielle and I say that all the time.
Yes.
So Sonia, if we can just have a conversation with our listeners today. Right now, we came out of a crazy, probably one of the craziest seasons in all of our lives, COVID, right? It radically changed everything that we've done, how we lead, how we build our companies, and all. What are you seeing right now in the small businesses across New York State? Like, what are you seeing as some of the biggest struggles or some of the biggest dangers to these companies? And what are you seeing as some of the greatest opportunities right now?
I mean the danger in general will always be uncertainty, and that doesn't
Mm,
and that can be in any, whether it's geopolitical, whether it's financially, access to capital. I think in uncertainty in general, whether personally, professionally, business, scares people and
mhm.
makes people kind of stay stagnant. But I feel like you have to plan for the unknown, and make a decision,
Yeah.
and kind of lead with that, whether it turns out and it turns out well, or it turns out and you learn from it and you have to pivot. I think actually outlining that for your business, outlining it for your personal life, and making the step is the first, like, major decision you have to make. It's just taking that step. And then
Yeah.
trusting that you can, overcome those challenges or can be successful. So I think uncertainty will always be a really big thing. Like I said, no matter what aspect of a business owner, it's, the uncertainty on workforce, on if you're going to have a workforce, uncertainty on access to capital,
Yeah.
uncertainty with the political landscape. I think that worries a lot of entrepreneurs. But I always say there's always opportunity on the other side, and the ones that take the leap and have mentors or have leaders or go to events, go to networking, or talk to other business owners are the ones that succeed. During COVID, I saw the ones that were really successful are the ones that partnered and collaborated together. So
Mm.
you might have a coffee shop and you might have someone that's brand new that's also um, bakes goods, and they don't
Yeah.
want to go to a full-fledged cafe, but they were like, "Hey, I can provide my products," where I saw this coffee shop that they seasonally rotate different vendors in their location, which gives
Hmm.
an opportunity for different new businesses to showcase and scale their business, but also gives your customers a variety of different local businesses right in one location. So it's a win-win-win for everyone, your
I know.
customers, for you as a business owner, because you don't have to take on a new uh, aspect of the business of having a bakery and having staff and doing that, but then you also are helping another business scale up. So I
Okay.
saw the ones that, like you said, what are the challenges and opportunities in COVID? The ones that collaborated and saw a different way to meet their customer needs were the ones that were successful.
Yeah. Danielle, our friend John Maxwell, who you met when we were in Atlanta, John says this a lot. He says a strong partnership divides the work and multiplies the impact, right? And I think to your point is in during those crisis moments, when you partner together, the work gets a little bit lighter and the impact can get a little bit greater. Tell me what you're seeing right now in the small business world across all of New York State when it comes to how they're leading, and what the ones that are leading well, what are some of the characteristics that they're doing well? And the ones that are not leading well, what are some of the characteristics you're seeing that they're doing not performing well?
Um, of course, the ones that are performing well, I would say are, I mentioned this a little bit, but taking chances. They're saying, I've been in business for 10, 20 years, and they're taking chances of maybe going after a larger project or looking at government contracting or looking at being an exporter. We have an international trade director statewide, and she
Mm.
always says, she's originally from Spain, and she says, in other countries, it's very like best practice and first nature to do business and trade and create something for other countries to like grow your business. And she
Yeah.
said that gives you an opportunity of, like, if you have, for instance, a juice company, to take the chance to maybe look at another market and expand your business. So I feel like the ones that are taking chances, doing the research, and opening up new doors, like, it's very scary to say, well, what if it
Yeah.
fails? But it's also, what if it does well? There's another client, they did $400,000 in 1 month with a new market. It's like
Mhm.
there's opportunities there, but it's like, are you willing to look at working on your business and not just in your business?
Yeah.
So,
I think to that point, Sonia, a lot of times with leaders or just with business owners, I think they struggle sometimes because they feel, and I know for me, it was for Danielle and I in the beginning, is that if we failed, we were failures. So I think a lot of business leaders struggle through that, where they think that if they try something and it doesn't work, well, now I'm a failure, because they attach the failure to their identity.
Yes.
Do you see that a lot with the businesses in New York State that you guys are working with?
Yeah. So, and that was your question, which ones are doing well and which ones are, having a hard time or struggling to get over that hump. It's the ones that are stagnant and that are not
Mhm.
changing based on their environment, based on the business changes in the climate, based on their customer evaluation or need or assessment. Some of them don't even know what their customer changes are, within the community that they're serving. So, um, yeah, that I definitely agree with that. Is that the fear of failure keeps people frozen. But I feel like you got to try one way or the other.
Well, I mean, listen, the truth be told is that if you don't try, you're going to fail eventually, right?
Correct.
I have this cute, you'll find this to be a funny story. So my mom and I, right, one day we're out after church with Danielle, and we're literally in the car. My mom asks me about AI. Now, my mom is a 76-year-old Italian woman. Like like the nonas that were cooking in the show,
Yes.
Nonas for
I
Enoteca
know.
Maria.
I like that movie. Yes.
So picture my mom. My mom would be the one that's throwing stuff across the kitchen, right? So my mom asks me in the car, she goes, Chad, why do, like people are going to lose their job with AI? And I said, okay. And I'm thinking in my head, like, how do I explain AI to a 76-year-old Italian woman? And I did it the best way I know. I explained it with sausage and meatballs, right? I said, Ma, how much do you pay for chopped meat? She said about $6 a pound. I said, so if there's a place down the block that's charging $18 a pound, would you buy it? She goes, no. She goes, if the meat's the same quality, why would I buy it, right? And the reason why I'm bringing this whole story up, and I could go further into it on my mom, is most people are resistant to change. So they think by resisting the change, they don't have to deal with the change. But eventually the market doesn't pay for inefficiency.
Hmm.
So the market won't pay $18 a pound because you haven't evolved, you haven't grown, you haven't developed, you haven't put systems in place. And I think that's one of the greatest struggles to a business, is where they think that what worked 20 years ago will work today. And you see that. And unfortunately, it creates a problem because they can't continue to survive in an environment that's changing. And
Hmm.
two, is it ultimately hurts the people that work for them, because the people that work for them are not able to grow into a future that they're going to be able to be involved in that business, because that business may not be around. And when I was explaining it to my mom, she started to get it when she's like, yeah, I wouldn't pay $18 a pound for a chopped meat. And I said, well, what happens if you like the person? She said, maybe I'll pay a couple of dollars more per pound for liking them, but I'm not going to pay 3 times more.
Correct.
And I think businesses really struggle through that, Sonia. I think that they think that because they have a relationship with someone, they can be inefficient. And really, it's not the truth. You need to be effective, you need to be efficient, and you also need to be able to be innovative. And that requires you to get out of your comfort zone. And I think a lot of business owners struggle through that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's and that's a great story, and love that you're able to put that in context for your mother to understand AI in a little bit. But there's like this Venn diagram, and I probably don't get all of the pieces correctly on businesses. Like you have to, one, solve a problem, or two, be a necessity, or three, be like cost effective. And so in that
Mhm.
Venn diagram for a business owner, it overlays. So like, are you doing either all three or at least two of those three? So,
Yeah.
if it's not solving a problem of like, of course, your mom is going to get chopped meat to cook, but like the cost effectiveness, it has to overlay what's one of these other things. And I
Yeah.
think that's what business owners of, like I said, working on their business and not just in it, of like, I'm good at this, I'm a good butcher. The business aspect and brushing up on that will help, like you said, with the efficiency aspect, with the customer delivery aspect and the
Yeah.
customer experience. You have to think about it more holistically, I think, is
Yeah.
what business.
Yep. Have you heard? I think you have. Have you ever heard me talk about the four lids?
Um, Probably. You have to, I've heard you say something about lids, but I don't know if it's about like the layer for like your staff or staffing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the four lids is we talk about it that every organization has these four lids. The lids are the things that stop us from getting to the next level, right? And so the first lid is our thoughts and our beliefs.
Hmm.
The second lid is our leadership ability, how we've developed ourselves as leaders. Third lid is organizational alignment. And then the fourth lid is systems and processes.
Hmm.
When you look at those four lids, where do you see the biggest struggle right now with the businesses that you guys are working with?
Um, I mean, I would say looking at their efficiencies and where they are in the market.
Mm,
You know, most business owners go into business. Well, I say entrepreneurs and business owners are very different.
I would
Entrepreneurs,
agree.
yeah, their mindset for entrepreneurs is I have a solution to a problem in the market, make it successful, and sell it off and create something else. They're creating
Mhm.
solutions. Business owners, I say, are very different. They're really good at something. So you're good at pizza, making pizzas. You're great at dry cleaners, or you grew up with your family dry cleaners. And so you're there as part of like a community pillar. And
Mhm.
so for them, I think it's different issue of efficiency and looking at the longevity of a business.
Mm.
Said working on it and fixing some of those things versus like relying on long-standing, this is the way it's always been kind of
I
thing.
know. That's like the nail in the coffin when someone says, "Oh, this is the way we've always done it." It's like, "Oh my God, we have a problem."
Yeah,
Like,
I'm like, but there's so many other ways to do it. And that whole thing, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I'm like, continuous improvement is very helpful. That's, you should be
yeah.
improving. Yeah.
Well, that whole continuous improvement is really interesting that you said that because Toyota really built that Kaizen model, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of people would say that the Toyota motor that they built is one of the best motors that's in the world, but they take that approach to constant continuous improvement.
Mhm.
And I wish I personally would love to see small businesses and even mid-sized businesses take that constantly, where how are we just improving in the things that matter so that our business evolves? Talk to me about constant improvement. Like, what does that mean to you and how does that impact the businesses that you lead?
I mean, continuous improvement is one of our standards of excellence. We're reviewed in general as a national program, but one of those aspects internally for my team is on, professional development and learning about the business landscape. If we're not up to speed on AI or workforce development issues or access to capital because there's changes in lending and financial institutions, then how can we help those businesses? So we have to be
Yeah.
entrepreneurial as well. So I think continuous improvement, and you probably heard this, 1% each day is better by the end of the year versus nothing at all. So I feel like if business owners focused on one thing that they wanted to improve and not, I think when people look at the entirety of something, they freak out of like there's too many
Mhm.
things to do. But like let's just focus on either if you're having workforce issues, let's focus on your talent development aspect.
Mhm.
Let's focus on your customer relationships or your CRM, your customer database,
Yeah,
your
yeah.
tools. Like focus on one thing and then try to improve it and do it well by whatever time frame you set for you and your team. I think
I'll give
that's
you the science behind that. You ready? Hey, so what you just said is dead on point. So if you take 1 degree improvement every day for 365 days, you'll wind up having 3,770% growth.
mm,
So if you take the number 1.0 and you bring it to the 365th power, one full year, the number is still one because there was no improvement. But if you take 1.01 and you bring it to 365,
mhm,
it's actually 3,770% growth because the
mm,
number is 37.70. And people don't, I think business owners and leaders don't really understand that it's not, a lot of the times they think it's these major things that makes the greatest impact to a business. It's really those 1 degree that you constantly keep refining every day. And all of a sudden, one day you're like, wow, look at the business that I have. I think people are trying to hit home runs rather than refining.
Yes, exactly. I think, like you said, the small wins, and as I was mentioning, focus on one or three things. Make it a small list of something that you're able to tackle. Make it realistic. They talk about,
Yeah.
those measures and those SMART goals. It has to be realistic. You're not going to give your whole business a facelift. You want to work
Yeah.
on maybe a small cosmetic change of like get just a nose job today.
A little tweak here and a little tweak there.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Did you ever meet Dr. Chris on our team?
No, I have not.
Okay, so Dr. Chris is a retired Navy SEAL,
Okay.
and he was tasked many years ago, about 20 years ago. He was tasked by his commanding officer to take a process that the SEALs, Navy SEAls, used, right? And it took 96 hours, and him and his team were required to figure out how to get it done in 96 minutes. So, but this is the powerful part, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was basically how to get the SEALs team out into the enemy territory, but instead of it taking 96 hours, how can we do it in 96 minutes? And one of the parts is that when you go from 96 hours to 96 minutes, you have to change everything of how you're thinking about solving something. If I said to you 96 hours to 90 hours, well, that's not really going to require a tremendous change, but 96 hours to 96 minutes, you're talking about 4 days to an hour and a half.
Correct.
A total radical shift of how you look at things.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think with people, they think that they need to do radical shifts when really sometimes it could be minor changes that change everything.
Yep.
And, we in our coaching business at Lions Pride Leadership, we talk about something called rocks. Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but Covey has talked about it. A lot of other people have talked about it, where they talk about these major rocks. And picture like you have this 5-gallon bucket, right? Most business leaders or most business owners or most entrepreneurs, they put all the things that are not that important. The things that they got to get done, the rocks and the pebbles and the sand, and they put the sand and the pebbles all in this bucket. And then there's no room for the major rocks that they need to do.
Correct.
So that
I've
they
seen a
can't,
visual of this. Yeah.
right?
As
But,
faculty do
but
this in their classes. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so we talk about put the rocks in, put the major things you want to get done that quarter, put it into the bucket, and then all of a sudden the sand and the pebbles and the water will fill around it, right? But most people don't do that. Most people are so focused on the day-to-day, their heads down and they're working, and they're not thinking about what does it really look like to keep growing the organization. And we just say, hey, picture taking 2 or 3 things that year that are major rocks you want to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And then focus that year on refining and tweaking and refining. And by the end of the year, you'll see tremendous growth. But I really just I wish I can encourage just business owners to do more of that, is just pick a couple of them, put your attention on it, and see what will happen to the business model.
And I totally agree with you. And yes, that illustration, and as you stated it, I'm like, oh yes, I've seen this and heard this a million times. The aspect of collaborating or connecting with organizations like yours or people within their community, but even other business owners. We've had a couple clients that said they reached out to similar businesses that were more than willing to give them a little bit of their time to mentor them. So it's like not being afraid to ask for help or suggestions. You
Yeah.
could just ask for a conversation. I think focus, growth, and like a fresh mindset is what helps leaders and businesses be successful.
Yeah.
And I think Denzel Washington said this is like if you're failing, fail fast and fall forward. So fail
Yeah.
fast and fall forward. Like just keep falling forward and not think of it as I get it. Business owners, you're putting in your own time, your own money, and your own livelihood of your family's livelihood is on the line of a business owner. So failing is very like a hard hit for you, but I feel like you can learn a lot from it if you do it quickly and you do it effectively. Um,
Yeah, that requires embracing. Could before we wrap up, we probably have about 5 more minutes. You've mentioned about 3 or 4 times the importance of mentors.
yes.
Could you speak to one, I guess, the impact mentors have had on your life, and then how important you think mentors are to a business owner or an entrepreneur's life?
I've had mentors probably. I'm also a very odd odd individual because I had a friend that went out with me this weekend and he said to me, "You look at things as like how can you find a solution?" He was like, "In everything you do." He was like, "We walked into the to this building. We were having
Uh,
lunch and my mind went directly into the signage for customers because you can't find certain things. So he like automatically sees that. And I feel like in general, like from a young age, my whole thing was having people around me to help me with my blind spots as well. And
yeah.
so, can you hear me? Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, mentors. I think mentors are important for anyone, whether it's personal or professional. Um, Especially people that have been where you want to go. I think it's
Yeah.
important to have those people there. You don't want to ask someone who's never started a business or is working with businesses for business advice. I think having the people that have been there and have walked in your shoes are important because you have an external, unbiased support system that hopefully wants to see you win and succeed. So, and you don't have to always take recommendations. I think that's the great part of that relationship with mentors is that you can have an unfiltered conversation about, skills, paths, journeys, strategic initiatives, strategic, planning and outlook for your business, but also for your personal life.
Yeah. I found that mentors, they give you a head start.
Yes.
Why do you have to sit down and learn? In my book, I write about the three types of mentors. There's the mentors that you know and they know that they've helped you, the mentors that you know and they don't know that they helped you, and then the mentors that you meet in books and podcasts.
Yes.
So I'm sure as we get this message out to our network, some of the things you shared is going to be like a mentor to them, where they're going to say, like, I never thought of that. Like, wow, that kind of impacted me. Like, oh, there is a difference between being a business owner and an entrepreneur. So, hey, before we wrap up, one person that was a mentor in your life that, and you could say the name if you want, but what was the characteristic of them, the impact that they had on you? And what was that characteristic that you really gleaned from them?
Um, I would say all of my mentors have been the one characteristic that's unique or I would say consistent across the board is that they are active listeners.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
would say.
good.
And like active listeners to understand, if that makes sense. So they're not just actively listening to give me feedback and recommend things. They're active listening to understand where I am in my journey, both personally and professionally. And then they're like, ask me questions, engage more to say, yeah, maybe this is the right path or that path.
Yeah,
I've talked about going to law school. I have an advisor, a mentor that has talked me out of it because she understands my long term strategy. And so I think active listening, understanding someone, and then gauging and probing and asking them to kind of reiterate what their goals are, it helps you think outside of the box. So yeah.
that's great. Sonia, before we wrap up, we have 60 seconds.
Yes.
Parting wisdom, something you want to share with our audience around leadership in business.
Leadership in business, I say, as business owners, you're leaders. You think about your team, think about yourself, and what that long-term sustainability is going to be, what your vision is for your business, for your community, and for your family. Focus on small tasks any percentage, small percentage of improvement and continuous improvement is important. And having a support system, as we know, and anything you do in life is really important. So those are my little nuggets.
That's great. And if people want to get in contact with you, how can they reach you?
All of our information's on our website. So it's nysbdc.org. So nysbdc.org. You will see my information. You'll see our advisory board, as well as the 20 centers that we have across the New York State.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I want to thank you, Sonia, one, for adding so much value to the people in our network. I can't wait for them to just continue to embrace and learn what you guys are doing. I want to encourage everyone, reach out and learn what the SBDC in New York State is doing. They're doing some amazing stuff. We've been partnering with them for a couple of years now. I'd encourage you to continue to learn about what they're doing. And Sonia, I want to thank you. Danielle and I really appreciate your leadership. The one thing that we can tell is when a person leads well, everything around them gets better. And you can see that happening in your world. So thank you for leading well. And I just want to thank you for being on the Leadership Table podcast. And we look forward to you continuing to join us on future episodes.
Okay. No, thank you so much, Chad. And I would say one last thing, lead through empathy. Lead through
Yeah,
empathy. Yes.
that's
So thank you
amazing.
so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.